We have Keith Smith joining us on the Locked On Hornets podcast to discuss the crazy offseason that's taken place in the NBA and what the Hornets could continue to do as the offseason goes along. Again, all today on the Locked On Podcast Network.
We're Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
Thanks for making us your first listen. It's Locked On Hornets. Appreciate you hopping on with us once again, catching us wherever you get your podcast. I'm joined by Doug Branson, my co-host. I'm also joined by Keith Smith. You can follow him at Keith Smith NBA on Twitter, contributor to a ton of outlets. Also, you can go check him out on Twitter at Front Office Show, where he hosts a show that's also on YouTube, talking everything behind the scenes. Keith understands that stuff a lot better than I do, a lot better than Doug does, and that's why we have him on. So, Keith, thank you so much, man. How are you holding up in this crazy offseason?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been a prolonged offseason, it seems like, and it doesn't seem like it's going to slow down anytime soon.
We still have Kevin Durant. Who knows what's going to happen there? We still have Kyrie Irving. Now Donovan Mitchell. Looks like Danny Ainge and the Jazz, they're listening now. They're picking up the phone. They're not ignoring your phone calls and sending you to voicemail anymore. And because of that, I want to start there. That's kind of been reported the last couple of days that they're listening to some of those offers. I know the Knicks are the team. They're the team most mentioned with a potential Donovan Mitchell deal. Keith, I want to start with like the sender package to go get him, because when the Jazz traded Rudy Gobert, that package was insane, shocking the NBA. Do we use that as an accurate barometer as far as what it would get to, or what it would take to get Donovan Mitchell? Or is that just like so much of an outlier? Is that so bizarre that it really doesn't accurately represent what the Jazz are looking for? Like, how do we make sense of what they got in return for Rudy and how we can attribute that to what they are looking to get for Donovan Mitchell?
That's a great question. I think we are at a point where the Jazz are going to use that as their barometer. Whether or not that's how it actually plays out, we'll see, right? Because I think they're going to be saying, hey, we got all this for Rudy Gobert. This is Donovan Mitchell, all-star, level guy everybody loves. We need to make this move even bigger, and we'll see if that's where that goes. Now, all trades aren't created equal. All trade packages and returns aren't created equal, obviously. But I think Danny Ainge, when he took over that team, I said, if they flame out early in the playoffs again, I'm not going to be surprised if he tears this thing all the way down. And when he tears it down, he's going to tear it all the way down to the studs and start completely over. Even when he did that in Boston, he was like, well, Rajon Rondo's the young guy they're going to build around. He made it all the way till about mid-January of the next season.
Yeah.
So, he's going to do everything he can. And, I think if he's got a team that's willing to give him 4, 5, 6 first-round picks, young players, whatever it is, salary cap flexibility moving forward, I do think he's going to be all over.
I mean, does that put them kind of in OKC range? I mean, if they get all of this with Rudy Gobert, and then we're going to also have this crazy package for Donovan Mitchell, it seems like those two teams would be rivaling each other for the most amount of assets to try to build for the future.
Yeah, and the funny thing is some of the picks they'd probably get from the Knicks were ones that OKC had just a few weeks ago and traded to the Knicks in the draft day dealings. Went along as they moved up to get Ousmane Dieng. So that is likely to be some of those picks moving around a little bit there. So I think that's Danny Ainge's MO has been get all the draft picks, whether you use them all or not, you just pile them all up, and then we move forward from there and see where that goes.
All right, Keith.
I have a question. I have a question on this. So, Keith, I'm old enough to remember. I know you are. I don't know about Walker. You can see his fresh face. He's pretty young, but I'm old enough to remember when Danny Ainge fleeced the Brooklyn Nets and got a bunch of picks back and rebuilt that organization. And I feel like after that went so wrong for Brooklyn, that a lot of teams pulled back on the idea of giving so many picks away for big stars. But that seems to be all out the window now. Atlanta did it for DeJounte Murray, and Minnesota obviously did it for Rudy, and people are considering doing it for Donovan Mitchell. What's your kind of read on the situation? Why are franchises more likely now to do something like that?
Yeah, I think there is a sense that the league is so flush with talent that you can go get that talent now, and you don't necessarily, if you're the right type of team and market, building through the draft isn't something you need to do. We've seen Miami for years basically say, who cares about the draft? It does not really a thing for us. Now, when they do use their picks, they tend to hit. They get Tyler Hero, they get Bam Adebayo. They do quite well. But more often than not, they've traded those picks. They've moved them on in deals. We've seen the Clippers do that to some degree of success. So I think that's what you're starting to see now. Is some of these teams say, "Hey, we're this type of team. We can go get this player now. Go get the player. We can worry about all the picks and all that later." Because our goal is get talent now. We'll let the rest of it sort itself out.
All right, Keith, help Doug and I out because we've been talking about the Hornets spin on this as it pertains to Donovan Mitchell, where Doug is all in. Let's go for Donovan Mitchell, and I'm all out. I'm 4 first-round picks. We'll go ahead and get this star, put him alongside LaMelo, and I wouldn't be opposed to it. Like, I'm much more sitting the fence, giving you the neutral, boring take of, hey, watch out for the risk here. I'm pretty scared. The question to you, with the Hornets in mind, do you think that they're in a spot right now where it's okay to make that jump for Donovan Mitchell? Or even just maybe a better question is, are they in a position to where they could give up all the picks, whatever it would take to get that caliber player?
Yeah, I think they're close. I think if the as long as you still have LaMelo and you still have some of the other guys that you like there with the team, I think you can't gut your team and just have LaMelo and Mitchell, and then we'll figure out the rest, because they're not that kind of free agent destination where it's guys are going to flock there or anything like that. So that becomes a little bit of an issue with that side of it. But as long as you leave enough in reserve around those two guys, sure, yeah, I think you're definitely in a position where you could try to do that. The challenge is, what does that mean? Is that Terry Rozier and PJ Washington and a bunch of picks to match the salary? I can't imagine it's Gordon Hayward. I don't think the Jazz want to go back down that path again, so that doesn't seem overly likely. I mean, Danny Ainge did sign him once, so I guess don't rule out anything, but I just don't think that's the way that's going to go. So that's where it becomes a little bit of a challenge. It's interesting to me with Donovan Mitchell and Kevin Durant, very kind of polar opposite ends of their career, right? But two very super duper talented guys. I think what you have to look at a little bit is, it's fine to say, like, I'll use an example with the Boston Celtics in the Kevin Durant talks. If it was Jaylen Brown for Kevin Durant straight up, I think I'd probably do it. When it becomes Jaylen Brown plus, that's where it all falls apart. It's that plus. They have to be super cautious of, because if that happens, you're going to be in a lot of trouble if the player doesn't stick and it doesn't work out, because then you're out everything and you're out the player you gave up, and it all starts to crumble on you pretty quickly.
Yeah, you have to be confident. You have to be confident that Donovan Mitchell can come in and fit. And I'm confident enough that he's so uber talented that the organization, and you're pairing him next to LaMelo Ball, who is somebody that is playmaker first, scorer second. So I
he's
think
got the size, right, too. So Mitchell being a smaller guard doesn't really hurt you.
Right.
Well, Keith, help me out just very briefly before we move on, because there have been some comments in our comment section essentially saying that Terry Rozier and Donovan Mitchell, that there's not much of an upgrade there. Can you help some people out and just let them know, like, Donovan Mitchell is actually a pretty serious upgrade.
Look, the gold.
Yeah, there's the pop. He's told you he wants attention this morning. He wants to be involved in everything.
Wait, what are your thoughts on Terry Rozier?
Yeah, let's get it. I love that idea. Look at that.
His name is actually Tatum, so he's probably got some basketball thoughts.
Yes.
On that. So with the that comp, I'm a big Terry Rozier guy. I think he's really good. But Terry Rozier is really good if he's your third, fourth, fifth best player. Right. Donovan Mitchell is really good if he's your first or second best player. You're probably a really good team. And I think that's just the difference. Mitchell is a more pure scorer than Rozier is. Rozier's a better defender for sure. He's a better rebounder. Mitchell's probably a better playmaker overall when you factor in the passing and the scoring combination. But he's just such a lift as far as that. Plus, he's also a guy, if you start a team where it's LaMelo Ball and Donovan Mitchell, then, like I said, they're not a prime free agent market. But if it's a summer like this one, where there wasn't a lot of cap space and wasn't, a ton of stars, you could start picking off those tier 2 free agents and say, hey, we got a minute, we got minutes here, we got a role for you, come here and join this. So yeah, I mean, I love Terry Rozier, but Donovan Mitchell's just on a different.
Don't go to sleep on the All right, let's change topics coming up next after the break. We're going to get more Keith Smith, but more importantly, we're going to get more Tatum coming up next. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. You can find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's Major League Baseball regular season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sport wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. More Keith Smith coming up next. Locked On Hornets.
You are listening to the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Thoughts on the news about Cody Zeller's injury?
That's a tough one, man. I mean, what the doing, dude?
He's just injured, man. It's okay.
It's
Look,
just, he's
injuries
just having to deal
happen.
with an injury.
He didn't want to get injured, okay, David? But
Sorry, guys. I just had someone jump out in front of my vehicle. That was understanding.
only on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
The Renaissance man, contributing to a lot of outlets. But Keith, I got to be honest with you. When I think about having you on the show and like our conversations over the years, there's two things that stick out most. One, it's something I'm sure a lot of people have talked to you about. It's the fact that you were the originator of the idea to have the NBA play in the bubble down in Disney World. That you were the first one, that you have props over that. And it's still that's an actual thing where the association adopted your idea. That's really cool. The other thing I think of too is this anniversary, 4-year anniversary, just took place like as we were transitioning to June, where the Brian Colangelo burner Twitter accounts, that story broke like 4 years ago. And those burner accounts interacted with you as much as any NBA personality out there. You were constantly in contact with it because they would just comment on any of the tweets that you would throw out there. Like, how bizarre was that time after that story broke and then your example is like posted in the Ringer, some of your tweets? Like, how bizarre was that for you to go back and see?
Yeah, it was weird. I had a couple people ask me, like, did you know anything about that? And I was like, no, I just assumed this person was a real passionate defender of, the process and, the way it was going and, the new process, I guess, not the hinky side of it. So, yeah, because I think the most famous one was something where I said, hey, Joel Embiid's really good, but can you count on him, with the injuries? Or it was something along those lines. And I was like, yeah, this is exactly right. And blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, that's, it does always make me laugh a little bit when somebody brings that one up.
You have to be careful. You have to be careful with how you treat the commenters. Any commenter could be a Terry Rozier burner, could be a LiAngelo Ball burner. You just never know. Got to be careful.
I feel good about our Terry Rozier comments right now. Keith said he really liked Terry, so if he's listening,
I do too.
If he's commenting in the
Donovan's
YouTube
a different player.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we feel good about that. I want to ask you about the Deandre Ayton process before we maybe move on to some other Hornets specific offseason stuff. Keith, kind of weird there, right? The Pacers only gave a offer sheet for the second time in the last 40 years to Deandre Ayton, and then 30 minutes after it was officially completed, the Suns actually matched that offer sheet and eventually end up giving DeAndre like $2 million less per year than what it would have taken had you just taken care of this all in the first place. What do you make of this mess? Like, is it all Phoenix's fault? Do you have some sympathy because of, do you understand some of their feelings on this? Just what are your overall thoughts on what's taken place?
Yeah, I like that you called it a mess because that's what I think it is.
Okay.
I think it's, this is one where I didn't understand the reluctance from the beginning. I thought they should have got something done with DeAndre Ayton right away. I think DeAndre Ayton's good. I think, you went to the finals with this guy as a massive part of your team to make it to the finals. Like why are we now messing around with, maybe we don't really want him. Maybe he's not that kind of guy. So that always felt a little bit off to me. Then the whole idea of this wasn't the typical, we're offering you less, so go out and get an offer sheet and then maybe we'll think about matching it. This was literally, you sign an offer sheet and we're going to match it. Well, then just give them the same offer yourself and move on and save everybody the trouble. I didn't understand that when we heard the Pacers stuff, and I want to say it was in the afternoon on Thursday. I thought it was leading to, all right, we're going to get a sign and trade here. This is going to be how this goes down. That's how the Pacers prefer to do business. They don't like doing offer sheets. They'd rather just work a sign and trade. But then when the reporting came out of like Phoenix is going to match, and then they did when it all played out. I don't know. I just feel like this is not, now you've got a player who you, in my opinion, treated poorly. Yes, sure, he got more money than I'll ever see in my lifetime, but it is, he is still got less money than he could have otherwise, whether direct from you or potentially down the line from another team. But yeah, it's just a weird situation. I'm gonna have a lot of eyes on that when they report to training camp here in a couple months. Like, what does that all look like? Because it just seems a little off. Everything seems a little off, especially for a team that's a title contender built around, in a lot of ways, an older guy in Chris Paul. You think you want to maximize that window versus introducing any kind of unnecessary drama into it.
Some of the worst bosses that I've ever had in my life all had one common trait, and that was that they all had to see something to believe it. They could never just take data and analyze it and say, oh yeah, I can anticipate that this is a poor thing to do or a poor decision. And they always had to run into the brick wall to believe it was there. And I think, we've got enough evidence that Robert Sarver may be a bad boss, like a particularly bad boss.
Maybe.
And so I think this situation just got, because he was the one that, said to DeAndre Ayton, he didn't believe that he was a max player. It's like, well, now believe it, because Indiana obviously valued him as a max player. So let's talk about some of the stuff that the Hornets have done this offseason, and they haven't done a lot, so we don't have a ton to talk about. But one of the things that they did do is re-sign Cody Martin to an extension, an $8 million per year over 4 years. Did you like that move? Is that amount of money something that, for a guy who can come in 3D, fill in for a starter every once in a while, is that kind of the money that you expect for that kind of player right now?
I think it's a great deal for Charlotte. I think, if anything, that's a little under what the market is for a 3-and-D player. I think circumstances different with his twin brother, because he could only offer him what the max amount that they gave him via the taxpayer mid-level. But I think those two guys, it's been very funny to watch them both grow and blossom into. Now I feel like they're both very high quality 3-and-D wings in the league. And whether you're going to have them be a major part of your team, or they're going to be part of a trade package down the line, either way, that's a player who, combined with the contract, that's value for you the rest of the way. So yeah, I love that deal. That's actually one of my more favorite deals of the offseason, because I just think he's a guy who you can just plug him in almost any grouping and say, just do your thing, play defense, shoot threes, run the floor. And he's going to be able to do that. It falls apart, obviously, if it turns into handle the ball and make a bunch of plays, and that gets a little wonky. Mm-hmm. But they've got the ball handlers, they've got the playmakers. They just play your role and off you go. And I think at a position of need for Charlotte too, it was important to retain him.
Keith, the thing I assume affected the Charlotte Hornets greatly was the fact that Miles Bridges, just a couple of weeks ago, turned himself in to be arrested for a felony domestic violence charge. And he was set to make close to max contract. And the Charlotte Hornets, I think we all kind of expected that the Hornets were going to match whatever offer sheet was coming his way, whether it be, any team out there. The Hornets were going to match, and it was just how brutal that was going to be. Hadn't happened because we don't know all of the details. We did see the Michelle Johnson post, who is his wife, who put the medical report, who also had some things to say about her own accounts with her interactions with Miles Bridges that are extremely troublesome. And the court date is going to happen in 5 days, July 20th. And by that time, we're already very much through the NBA offseason, very much so through free agency. Look, I don't quite know what question to ask as far as the Charlotte Hornets operations, right? Because this is something I don't know how you would operate under these circumstances. I guess my question to you is, did you expect the Hornets to do something after Miles Bridges turned himself in for this arrest? How did you expect them to kind of navigate what they're going through right now?
I think it's played out mostly the way I expected it to, from the Hornets side, taking the basketball abilities out of the equation. Because if that was the situation, obviously great player, right? I'd have no problem with him getting a max deal. Ideally, I'd like it a little bit under that, but that's a whole other situation. With the situation he's in, with the allegations and all that are going to come out, I expected one of two results. Either Hornets were going to completely cut ties fully and say we're done. We have seen teams in, whether it be the NBA, the NFL, Major League Baseball, do that in the past, or it was going to be we're going to let things play out. We'll see where this goes. We'll let the legal process kind of run its course, and then we'll see where we're at there. Some people, I think, were surprised that the Hornets did not pull his qualifying offer, that's that standing 1-year offer that he has that he could sign at any point. That doesn't surprise me because that still allows them to kind of keep control of things right now a little bit. And in that, to some extent, if they just pulled that, he became an unrestricted free agent. You might have a team of the other 29 that says, hey, we'll make him an offer and we'll deal with whatever the fallout is public relations wise and legally. We'll handle all that as it comes. Right now, because of his restricted status, you've kind of left him in a limbo where no one's going to jump, no one's going to do anything, and that's probably the best for all parties involved. Let the legal process play out and see where it goes. With that, it certainly doesn't look good. Now, I'm getting into my own opinion on all this. It doesn't look great, and if any of this comes out to be true and there's not more to the story and it happened the way it is, then he has no business being anywhere near a basketball court or a contract or anything like that. But we have a process in this country where we let things play out. It's innocent till proven guilty. Let's see where all this goes together with this, and we'll see. But yeah, for now, I think it's unfortunate on a lot of levels, taking it back to the strictly the basketball operations side. It's unfortunate for the Hornets because I'm sure they had a plan for their offseason, and this was not part of it, right? So now you had to, on the fly, let's see what we have to do. And to some extent, they're a little bit stuck because you can't, you could completely move on and say, we're done, we're cutting ties, we're getting out of this. But if it comes out later of, hey, it wasn't what it looked like it was, did you act too quickly, too harshly, too reactionary to that? Or, the other way is, or we just waited out and that's where they're at now. And they maybe have not made some moves, not done some other things because they're waiting to let this play out there. That's, it's one of those things where it doesn't do it justice to say it's not good at all for anybody involved in this situation.
Yeah, it is difficult because as an organization, it's not, you have a public relations universe to also, and that universe the public relations universe, the court of public opinion does not abide by the United States courts, so there's also a risk in waiting too long. And I think that's why you've heard some whispers about this July 20th court date, the information that comes out via that, maybe being a marker as to when the organization could possibly act. Because if you let this continue to play out and it looks worse and worse, then people will start to question why you waited so long. My question would be just a clarification on how this could all play out, which is, so they missed the deadline, or they didn't miss it, but they didn't pull the qualifying offer within the deadline where they could just pull it and nothing happens. What would happen? What would have to happen now, if they wanted to pull that qualifying offer?
Yeah, Miles Bridges and his representatives have to agree to that. We often see this happen when it is a case of, you've got a better offer somewhere else. It's generally more a lower end free agent where it's, all right, a team's going to give you part of an exception or whatever. We're only looking at a minimum deal. We'll pull the qualifying offer as a symbol of goodwill, and we'll move on. In these situations, here it's kind of the two big restricted free agents left on the board are Miles Bridges and Colin Sexton. Neither one of their teams is likely to pull it because just again, then they lose control of the process. But if the Hornets decided today, tomorrow, or sometime after the court date, Miles Bridges has to agree. At that point, you would assume that they would, just because, all right, we're going to try to, whatever comes after whatever punishment or trial or whatever is handed down, we're going to try to get a fresh start here and go in that direction. I think they would agree to it, but that is the process. They do have to agree to say, yes, we're going to agree to pull that, because he loses his ability to sign that qualifying offer. As it stands today, he can sign it, at any moment if he wants to, and then it's a 1-year deal to return back to the Hornets.
Keith, we appreciate your time. We appreciate Tatum's appearance. We appreciate everything you do. Thanks once again. Follow Keith Smith on Twitter at Keith Smith NBA. Go watch his front office show. You get a way better understanding of everything basketball related, including behind the scenes. Keith, thanks once again. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. We'll come back. We'll talk about some of Keith's thoughts as it pertains to the Charlotte Hornets, and then move on discussing their summer league game last night. One very good against the Chicago Bulls. We'll be back to recap that coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast. Awesome stuff there from Keith. Understands the CBA. Like, he and Bobby Marks are the dudes I go to when it comes to like CBA stuff, when it comes to how free agency plays out, all the money. That's the guy to go have on, and I appreciate his time.
He's our Charles Schwab. He's our NBA financial advisor.
Yeah, absolutely. Keith is, and he really helped us out as far as the trade package for Donovan Mitchell too, right? Like, that's been a hot topic. You know, who knows how realistic it is that the Charlotte Hornets would actually have a chance at landing Donovan Mitchell. But I know that was something we talked about yesterday, Doug, and he was kind of, I don't know if it's in the middle, but he was saying, yeah, you can go after Donovan Mitchell if you can keep some reserves, but you don't want to completely gut your team in order to do it and have only those two guys, because I don't know what kind of situation you're going to be contending for the postseason, right? Like, it's nuanced. It's really tough. It's why I'm having trouble wrapping my brain around going after Donovan Mitchell, hell or high water. You wanted to talk about the Gordon Hayward, Terry Rozier going out package a little bit more. So I know when Keith talked about how maybe Utah wouldn't want to have a reunited theme with Gordon Hayward.
Yeah, I'm less sure about that, because I think it's so many things are different in that organization, both in the front office. Obviously, the coach is different now. There's so many different things that I don't know how Gordon really necessarily feels about his time in Utah. Maybe there's some issue there, but I think that from the organization standpoint, I don't know that there's going to be much of a hang up there. To me, the Gordon Hayward contract, if you're going to take back any contract from the Charlotte Hornets that you would need to make it work, that would be more desirable because the years are less. Terry Rozier is out for another few seasons. And so I think that would more align with what it seems like Utah is doing, which is full rebuild. Now, the counter argument to that would be, okay, maybe they take back Terry Rozier if they could get someone of value like PJ Washington. Maybe that's part of the, but if you're sending Donovan, who is going to be a perennial all-star, I just don't think you have to make any concessions as a team. You're just going to get whatever you want. So I think it's, to me, I'm less sure about the whole Gordon versus Terry situation.
Unless Utah values Terry Rozier,
Maybe.
No, you're right. But no, I totally get it. I think, honestly, it comes down to a very simple question. Which contract is better? Oh, I can get off of Gordon Hayward's contract in 2 years. Good. Like, it almost might just be very simply about the length of the contracts when Utah isn't planning on being good for the next 2 seasons. It's not like Gordon Hayward's contract is going to prohibit them from going after a free agent to help them win. And so this is the classic, let's take on money, take on all of your picks. And I mean, they don't even have to take on money though. Like, they only have to do that to match the salary of one Donovan Mitchell. They don't have to take any excess, and maybe Gordon Hayward could be that and then be off of the books very simply. So I agree with you. I think that there'd be a shot there. Okay, let's talk about this summer league game yesterday against the Chicago Bulls. We had our one moment, Doug. That came against
one shiny moment.
Yeah, that came. I forget who even they played 2 days ago. Who was it? They beat. It was Cleveland, right? So
Cavaliers.
Yeah, they beat the Cavaliers.
You need to sign up for Every Hornets Boxscore.com. Then you can keep up with each game that the Hornets have won and lost in summer league.
Yeah,
Every Hornets Boxscore.com.
There you go. That's the Substack. Cleveland, they beat them, and then they lost to the Chicago Bulls, very much so. It's been an ugly summer league, except for that one moment where the offense looked pretty good. Defensively, they were getting stops. And then, Chicago came out to an early lead and never relinquished it. What were some of your thoughts? What could we find on your Hornets Substack?
There still were some silver linings. I think, overall, it was an ugly game. They came out, they couldn't shoot the basketball. They weren't particularly interested in defending all that well, but I thought there were some highlights. I liked what Kai Jones did in this game. Didn't necessarily fill up the box score, but he was providing energy in that first quarter, had that huge recovery block into the transition dunk. Mark Williams was guarding in space. I don't know if you caught this, but he got an opportunity. Now, they've been dropping him a lot, and I expected that, and that kind of tells you that in practice and what they've seen in scouting, they don't want him guarding in space a ton. So they're going to drop him a lot. But he did get an opportunity to go one-on-one guarding a guard, and look, he was active, had the arms out, footwork looked good, and he stayed with that guard. So I'm not saying that you don't want him to do that all the time. Obviously, the organization doesn't. But he proved that in that one instance, he could do it. And I think that's a positive to take away.
Yeah, the idea is you want Mark Williams to not be so bad in space that he can play in the playoffs, because the regular season, it's look, I'll keep going back to Rudy Gobert just because it's the most extreme example of that type of center. Rudy Gobert, even if it's overstated at times, even if even if Quinn Snyder maybe could have made some adjustments defensively as to help Rudy Gobert, they attacked him, and they just spaced out, and they were just staying away from him, not attacking him, but they were staying away from him, right? Like, can Mark Williams be out there on the floor defensively in crunch time, in postseason minutes? And you just have to be good enough to stay out there. And I think that's what you kind of saw from Mark Williams. The other draft pick, Bryce McGowens, it's been hot and cold for him.
That was not a great game.
Yeah,
that was not a great game. A
lot of missed shots.
I think it was 2 for 14, but I'll confirm that.
Oh, to end up? No, I think he finished like 4 of 18 to finish the entire game. Yeah, maybe need to subscribe to my Substack. Yeah, he ended up going 4 of 18. Bryce McGowens was something close in that neighborhood.
Yes,
which
1 of 7 from 3. Did have 15 points. He got to the line a few times with 6 of 7 from the line. So like if you walk away and just look at the 15 points, you go, hey, he led the team in scoring, but it was not only inefficient. This game really disappointed me from Bryce McGowens, because I thought the last bad, because so he's been on off essentially. He was off the first game, on the second game, I had that wrong. So he was on the first game, off the second game, on the third game. Now he was off this fourth game. We knew coming in that Bryce McGowens' offense has been labeled as inconsistent, and that was one thing he was going to have to improve on in order to really secure like a roster spot and rotation minutes in future years. Okay, so we knew that. This slipped from inconsistent and inefficient into selfish, in my opinion. I thought his offense actively hurt the team in this one. And so, I thought there were opportunities for him to make plays for Mark. There was one particular transition opportunity that I mentioned in my game notes that he had Mark Williams wide open. Would have been an easy dunk for Mark Williams. Instead, he was trying to get himself back into the groove, and he took a contested layup that just had no chance of going in. So, yeah, really disappointed with Bryce McGowens in this one.
Well, this is the problem with overreacting to a good game in Summer League.
Summer is for feelings.
I know. It's totally true. And I can't fault anybody for that. Hell, I was sitting here singing the praises of one Bryce McGowens, and it's
we were
totally
ready to
fine.
give him a 4-year deal.
No, I was not. You were ready to put him on the roster right next to LaMelo, but it was a decent question because the Hornets haven't done anything, right? Like, they brought back Cody Martin. Good deal. Keith loved it. We came in and said it was totally fair, both sides, and welcome for the next 4 years, Cody. Bryce McGowens was a guy that we were discussing whether we should take this 2-way deal away from him and just give him an actual, you're on the 15-man roster. And this is the problem, right? You said something there I thought was really important. Bryce McGowens actively hurting the offense. How does Bryce help a team when his shot's not going in? I don't think he does. Defensively, I don't love his stance defensively, and it's coachable, but I feel like gets caught kind of standing straight up at times. He has that bad habit of just kind of poking at the basketball, not getting, and then olays the guy right to the paint.
Yeah, there's some Malik Monk. Give me some Malik Monk flashbacks.
Well, and when I think of poking at the basketball, I think of Terry Rozier. Like, it's a really bad habit. He lets his guy go by, he tries to poke at it, doesn't get it, and then you're playing.
Actually, you know what?
4-on-5.
I take that back. Doesn't give me Malik Monk vibes. It gives me Dwayne Bacon vibes.
That's exactly.
Bacon,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's where I was going. You talk about actively hurting. Dwayne Bacon only was there to help you get buckets, and he didn't. Like, actively hurting the offense. Dwayne Bacon was the worst offensive player when we thought he was going to help the team out in like either the second or third year, and it just never happened. The saving grace for Bryce McGowens is that he did get to the foul line. So you're right. Like, Dwayne Bacon had that weird thing where he drove all the time and never got to the foul line. Very bizarre, because physical would attack and never was fouled and couldn't convert at the free throw line. Bryce can. Like, there's been evidence at Nebraska. You just mentioned it last night. So you do have that saving grace. But the problem with giving this guy any real rotation minutes, any real type of playing time, it's if he doesn't have his shot going for him, how does he help the basketball team? And I think the answer is he really doesn't right now. And that's okay. Second round pick, that's totally okay.
On a 2-way?
But 2-way deal, totally fine.
I still think he's in line. I mean, I'm not going to make a prediction, but I wouldn't be like shocked if after training camp or sometime during training camp they secure him to another deal and move someone else into the two-way spot. Speaking of the two-way spot, I thought in this game Brady Manek separated himself out a little bit from some of the other fringe players that we were talking about that are battling for two-way spots. I think he knocked down a few shots, but he was also showing, again, I think he's been consistently showing us things that he can do that we weren't quite sure he could do. Is he going to be able to do them like at an elite level? Are you really confident about that? No, absolutely not. But is it good enough in my mind to justify a two-way spot? You know, I think possibly if there's not someone out there that is performing at a level better than Brady Manek, that can give you a little bit of something maybe more that you need, because this Hornets team probably is going to end up with enough shooting, then maybe you go after that player if they're not going to make a roster somewhere else in Summer League. But I thought Brady Manek separated himself a little bit from the LJ Figueroa, who was milk carton game, completely absent. Tyshawn Alexander, I thought, played frustrated in this one, didn't really play well. LiAngelo Ball had 3 air balls. I mean, look, it plays a lot of heart, plays with a lot of energy, made a couple of good defensive plays. But the shooting when he's facilitated for has been pretty good, but he takes these step backs and side steps and air balls them. And I don't think he's done enough really to prove to me that he's ready for a two-way spot.
Who were you saying that to end there? LiAngelo? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's, again, it goes down to who's hitting shots. And I do think that's probably true for Brady Manek, but the guy can hit. There's no doubt. I mean, that's a quick trigger. He gets set up for the basketball and then lets it fly, and it goes in. He's an extremely good shooter, and that's really helped him.
A couple of other things. Mark Williams' passing in this one was really good. I thought he found a couple of cutters in this game, and underrated passer. I really didn't expect him to hit some of these passes. But here's one negative from Mark Williams that I think we have to keep an eye on, Walker. And we've got another game coming up on Saturday. The final game will be 5 p.m. on Saturday against the Minnesota Timberwolves. That'll wrap up the Summer League experience. I don't know if they'll even play Mark Williams. Honestly, at this point, it's like maybe we play some of these other cats that haven't had an opportunity yet and make sure that Mark Williams doesn't get injured. But one thing that I think I'll need to see in training camp or preseason or what have you is when Mark Williams put the ball on the floor, more often than not, bad things happened. Like, and he's had to, because, Jalen Crutcher had 5 turnovers in this game. They just haven't really had him. So maybe he doesn't have those opportunities to really do that a lot in the NBA. But that's got to be one of the things that develops over the next couple of years, because he caught the ball wide open at the nail, had an opportunity to just make one move, put the ball down very quickly and go up. And it was a turnover or a block shot. He got blocked several times in this game. So those kind of things concern me offensively for Mark Williams.
Yes. The good news is we didn't want him putting the ball on the deck before he was drafted. Nowhere in the scouting report was there, hey, let's let Mark Williams cook on the elbow. Like, if he catches it on the elbow and he has some space, pop it, shoot it. If you have a pick and roll that could be set up there, roll to the basket and just go dunk it. And in no way am I actually wanting Mark Williams to put the ball on the deck. And so that's okay that he struggles, because NBA rotation, a lot better passing, a lot better players, a lot better spacing, a lot better Mark Williams. It
is okay. And you're exactly right. It's okay because it was in the scouting report. But what I'm saying, ultimately, my take is Mark Williams is exactly what we thought he was. Nothing more, nothing less. And that's why he fell to 13. We're getting a really good look at why he wasn't a top 3 pick with the physical tools that he has. He wasn't a top 3 pick because of these issues. That what will separate. Now, could Mark Williams still become something greater than this scouting report? Absolutely. That's the question. Over the next couple of years, can he develop these parts of his game to become a little bit better? And that's what's going to possibly get him into all-star territory, if those things will develop, and those are big ifs.
Yeah, well, and I would say, only to push back a little bit is the thing that he has done better than the scouting report suggested was guarding in space that we just saw. That was something that he struggled with.
I'll say limited sample size and limited talent.
Oh, of course.
What happens when he goes up against,
I'm throwing
Schroeder or some other mid kind of guard?
Oh no! So wait, no, I'm not trying to put him. Why did Schroeder come to your mind?
I don't know. This is the first kind of just like it's just the first like point guard who could dribble a little bit and make some moves. Like that's not an all-star. Schroeder. it's like when I think of mid point guard, my brain went Schroeder.
Okay, all right. No, that was quite the example to go.
What is your okay? Mid guard, go.
What, mid guard?
Yeah, just like middle of the road guard.
I probably would have said mid guard. I don't know if I would have gone. I don't know if I would have gone Schroeder. It's a good point.
And it wasn't like a drive-by on Schroeder. I'm just saying, like, that to me, he's like super, like, Schroeder is like the upgrade of what he's facing off against Summer League. I'm just trying to bring some reality to this and tell you that that Schroeder is going
DJ Augustine. Maybe that's your guy. Maybe
there you go. By the way, he's still a free agent. He's still out there if the Hornets want to make a move.
They're going to do it. They're going to bring him back. Steve Clifford's
Kemba's still out there.
That's true.
Should have asked Keith Smith about that.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. We should have. Yeah, point being, Mark Williams showed us any guarding in space. That's good. And it's totally fine if you were to struggle there. So overall, pretty good summer league defensively from Mark Williams. And we'll see. We have one more game. We'll talk about it on that Monday following. Thanks again for hopping on with us on Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure your second listen is Locked On NBA. It's a 30-minute daily update when you check out Locked On NBA on the Locked On Podcast Network. Have a great weekend. We'll be back with you on Monday to recap the entire summer league session.
Denny Schroeder.